Gaia Pope Sutherland was 19 when she died. She was one of a significant number of young women and girls with a case against a man who had served time for child sex offences. Gaia had reported that she had been raped by him, but her case was dropped by the police and dismissed by the Crown Prosecution Service. Her family believed this was because her case was presented in isolation from all the other independent allegations of violence and abuse. Detectives were said to have been aware of allegations made against this man accused of grooming her as far back as 2014. Gaia was already suffering from severe post-traumatic stress and living in fear of retaliation from the perpetrator. So the collapse of the case had a devastating impact on her mental health. This contributed to her disappearance and death from hypothermia shortly before the suspect was due to be released from a prison sentence for other child sex offences. What happened to Gaia is heartbreaking. I have met many victims of sexual violence, so many of them have spoken about how it is not the violence that broke them, but the failed state response. That when they turned to the institutions they were supposed to be able to protect and deliver justice, they were met with incompetence or discrimination, a system that was uncaring and silencing. Gaia's heartbroken family have courageously taken up the campaign to change this. They have been pushing for Gaia's principle that stipulates that any failure by a police officer to comply with existing policies and guidance will be considered a professional standards issue and escalate to misconduct in the event that the pattern persists. It's basically trying to make the police do their job. It urges that all police forces investigate sexual violence crimes in line with the national operating model developed from Operation Superior, and that officers will be held accountable if they fail to do so. This amendment is a step towards delivering that principle. This amendment makes diligent considerations all intelligence on a suspect, i.e. previous convictions, reports or accusations, an unquestionable or overt part of what we expect for our police officers in their service. We know that repeat offending is a critical issue in the investigation of VAUG. The VAUG National Strategic Risk Assessment notes that a small proportion of offenders are responsible for a disproportionate amount of harm committed. For example, the femicide census tells us that 59% of intimate partner or relative homicide cases, a history of abuse towards the victim is evident. And research from Respect shows that a quarter of high-harm domestic abuse perpetrators are serial offenders, with some having as many as 6 different victims. Between 41% and 59% of Operation Soteria offenders were linked to more than one offence. And we also know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. One study sample revealed 120 undetected rapists, defined as those whose offences met the legal definition of rape or attempted rape, but who had never been prosecuted, were responsible for 1,225 interpersonal violence offences, including rape, child sexual and physical abuse. The picture is clear. We know who these men are. We know what they are doing, but because of endemic police failure to investigate properly, a lack of coordinated professional curiosity, those known perpetrators are acting with impunity. This new clause makes the investigation of potential perpetrators a central part of policing. A part of this, I mean, it's unbelievable they have to say this. The country would think that this was happening. A part of the standards, that must be a part of the standards of their professional behaviour. They must live up to and must be held accountable for. If a serving officer fails to do his or her job properly, they must face consequences, disciplinary processes, and if necessary, no longer hold that role. This seems very obvious. In a way, it is extraordinary that we're debating it. But the facts, for example, the appallingly low conviction rates for rape see a perpetrator held to account in just 1.5% of rape cases. And the devastating lived experience of families like Gaia's make it clear that we cannot continue. This new clause, based on the Gaia principle, will help ensure that survivors of VAUG are no longer denied justice and left in danger because police investigators fail to investigate a suspect properly. The amendment is named in memory of 19-year-old Gaia Pope from Dorset, who lost her life following these failures.